welcome to the Sister Friend Chat, our second episode. Last time we introduced ourselves, we'll do it again. I'm Erica.
I'm Amy.
And I'm Desiree.
And we decided that the theme of today's chat will be Word of the Year, which is a popular thing that people use, popular tradition people use to start the year. I found out about it maybe 5 or 6 years ago and joined a group to talk about it. It was more sort of like a scrapbooking group, kind of, but I joined because the concept intrigued me. And the concept is that at the beginning of the year, you would choose a word to invite that word into your life and try and stick with it through the year, and that it would be a word that could help you set your goals for the year. It would be a word that represented something that you wanted more of. And so I did it for a number of years by myself. Well, with an online group, but then I never really talked to people in my immediate circle about it. And then a few years ago, I did, and they liked the idea. And I think it was Desiree who asked me, "Oh, you should do a call about it, or something like that." And I was like, "Oh, what?" And so she wanted to learn more about it, learn about more about my experiences with the word and how to go about choosing a word. And so I did that, and a few other ladies joined in. Amy was one of them. But Desiree and Amy decided they wanted to keep talking about it with me throughout the year. And so we just kind of been on this journey together. And so that's how the three of us really connected and decided to even start this podcast. So we thought it would be appropriate that we would start this our second episode talking about specifically the word and kind of give an update as to how each of us will share what our words are and give an update as to what's going on with work. So it's like you're kind of jumping in mid journey, but I think if the concept or the idea sounds interesting to you, it'll help you be ready for maybe the end of the year, November, December, when you might start thinking about what you want for 2020 for yourself. And we could just expand who's a part of the conversation. Um, so I think I pretty much explained what it is, and why. I'll go into why it's so, I don't know, sticky for me, like why it has stuck with me and why I've been consistent about doing it. I can't say I'm as vigorous about some of the rituals that I do around it as I was when I first, but I'm very aware of my word all of the time. Um, and so it is just something that's a part of me. It's pretty much a spiritual practice, because I include God in the process, like consulting Him about my word, and looking for clues and um, just signs that He's a part of this with me. So um, the why, I consider the year a journey, okay? I consider each year a journey, a new journey that I'm embarking on. And I consider that word actually a friend that is going along this journey with me. It's a companion. The word I choose is going to be something that represents something good, something needed, something that not just meets my external needs, but that my soul needs. Um, and so, yeah, I might totally lack the concept of that word in my life, or think I do at least, but I'm inviting it in so that by the end of the year, wow, look at the growth, look at all that I got. Let me give you some examples of some words that I've chosen in the past. My first word that I chose was the word security. And while I could have thought of a lot of other things I wanted at that time, I couldn't think of anything else that I needed at that time. That first word that I chose, it was the year that it was coming off of the year that my mom had passed away. It was I was just consumed with fear of a lot of things, and fear was holding me back in a lot of ways. And so, security represented something that I really needed, and the opposite of the fear that I was operating in terms of making decisions and branching out, stepping out. And so, I walked through the year with security, and at the end of it, I felt like I had gone from maybe like a fetal position on the ground to like, okay, I'm standing up now. Like I just felt so much stronger after dwelling on security. So it was both a feeling and it represented, or it applied to so many different things: finances, safety, physical safety for me, my family, and just feeling stronger on the inside as well. Another word that I was like a little more obvious is move that I chose. And that year we ended up moving. I didn't know for sure that it was going to be that at the beginning of the year, um, but other things moved and shifted in my life. But a physical move from one address to another was a part of that year. So I really like to spend the end of the year contemplating what I need and want next, because it could just manifest itself in really powerful ways. And so my word this year is freedom, um, which is exciting to say. I'm still watching it unfold, um, but it's a big deal. It's a big deal. Um, Again, it can apply to so many different areas of one's life. Um, or it does of mine, and so I love it. Um, so I guess I covered the why, because in a nutshell, it's a friend that you invite, something you want a whole lot more of in your life. So choose carefully, and um, and it really does show up in the physical and the spiritual realm. So I love it. Okay, so was that good, ladies? Was that good?
Perfect.
Okay. Um, so more specifically, freedom. I came up with just a few questions to kind of prompt us and prompt you guys in your sharing. Um, and one of those question was, which I'll repeat as you go around if you get stuck or you forget. Okay, so one of those questions was, um, what has surprised you about your word thus far this year? Um, hmm, I think that I think I'm sorry. It's just been the extent of the meaning of it, or maybe the simplicity of freedom. I mean, see a picture of someone flying or someone who can move about all over the place, but freedom can show up just kind of in little decisions that you make. Um, and it doesn't come all at once, but you can take baby steps toward it, be it financial freedom, be it freedom to express yourself in one way or the other. It's something that accumulates. So I think that's, to me, the thing that's surprised me the most. I hope that makes sense. That it's not always this big, fun, swooping. It's just like, okay, a little bit, like I use my word, any word that I have to make little day-to-day decisions as well as big decisions. So it might be, I don't know, should I go to this thing I was invited to? Like that's a small decision, but well, does it seem like it represents freedom? Does it, you know what I mean? If there's nothing else that helps me decide, I can look at my word as a filter to help me make a decision about that little thing, but also a big thing. Like, do I want to continue to support this business or do I want to continue to have this business as my service provider? Like, do I want to still continue to attend this church? Does it represent freedom? Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Um, so the other, should I go on or should we go around?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. So,
We can go around for each prompt.
okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
So, what surprised you most about your word, Amy? I'll do Amy
I'm hungry. I'm hungry.
So my word of the year was trust. And what surprised me, I don't know if it surprised me, but it's like what you said. I use it as a filter for any struggle, either internal struggle or external struggle that I may be experiencing. I use it as a filter. So, first of all, I chose trust because I just felt that was something that was a word that was something that I needed to do more of. Whether that's just trusting myself, trusting my instincts, trusting the Lord, trusting God, just trusting that things will work out how they're supposed to be, trusting my loved ones, just trusting. And that's not an easy thing for me to do sometimes. I tend to be a person who likes control. So trusting is something that really makes me have to rely on others in some cases, but it makes me exercise my faith a lot. So, if I am experiencing, if I'm trying to make a decision, if I am just worrying about something, that word always echoes in my mind. Trust. First of all, trust the Lord, pray about it, leave it at His feet, and trust yourself. Trust that I have good judgment, and just don't worry so much. So it's been liberating. Um, we've been doing this. I've kind of been doing the word of the year with you I've realized for the past 3 years. I look back at my first word, it was brave. And at that moment in time, brave was a word that resonated with me because I needed to be brave and kind of step out on faith. At the time, I was going through a decision of whether I wanted to. My company's going through a layoff, so I was going through a decision whether I wanted to stay with my company, look for something internally, or take that opportunity to really step out of faith and do something else, because I knew that I didn't want to be there anymore. So that word kind of fed me throughout the year. The second word that I chose was confidence. And at the time, that was a word that resonated with me because at the time I was going through job search. So I needed to be confident. So I feel like the Lord has led me to each word for a particular time and for a particular reason. And as I choose a word of the day, I use the word of the day. Sorry, as I choose a word of the year, I try to meditate on it and kind of let God speak to me. What word is kind of percolating in my spirit, and those three words have each come at the perfect time. And so, yeah, that's my answer for how it's manifesting in my life. It was a long answer, but that's my answer. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I have there been any surprises about your word, trust?
Um, I don't know if there's been any surprises, but it's my mind just automatically, if I'm struggling to make a decision or if I'm just struggling with something, the word always kind of echoes in my mind. And That could be a surprise, but it's a surprise that I'm grateful for. I'm grateful that that the word always shows up when I need it.
I love that. That's powerful. The volume and now I feel like there is some crazy feedback.
A little bit,
A
yes.
little bit, but it's not terrible, but it's a little feedback.
Okay. I
Awesome.
don't know what to do to fix it. Okay.
Just roll with it.
Okay. Okay. I like how Amy also gave a little intro as to her experience, kind of overall, and then to get more specific, what surprised you about your word this year?
Cool. So my word of the year is identity, and to give it a little bit of context with this 3-year journey, my first word 3 years ago was align. Last year's was worth, and this year is identity. And quite frankly, it was the first time my word really popped up. It was evident and very, very clear. Sometimes I've had where I had to mull over a few words and really identify which one was jumping up. Well, this one just leapt into my lap. So it was crystal clear as to what it would be. And a lot of the definition of identity for me was surprising. Identity is obviously about understanding who you are. And although I personally believed I had an answer to that, what I started to recognize is that most of my life had been in some pursuit of purpose and being purposeful. And I mistakenly believed that identity and purpose were the same thing. But what I really arrived at was that purpose is certainly what you do, whereas identity is who you are. And they may or may not be the same, and yet they should align. The whole idea
Wow.
is being able to do both, and being able to make sure they connect. And so I've been focused on doing and been a pusher, and it was wearing me out, quite frankly.
Mm.
And so this year, with this word, and especially with where we are now in the year, it has definitely surprised me in how it has shown up. I have gotten a great deal of clarity, and admittedly, I've also been working with a coach in enabling this to show up more fully and to clear some of the head trash. But um, I have been surprised with how it's shown up because I've learned more about who I am, but more than that, I've learned about what I'm not and who I'm not. And so it's been an interesting exercise of how it showed up um, from a standpoint of eliminating certain things that I was holding on to, things that really perhaps had attached themselves to me that gave me some type of um, response, safety, whatever we want to call it, security, but were not serving me. And so these were identities that I'd allowed to take up my own space that had to be eliminated. And so it surprised me that identity for me has first meant being really clear as to who and what I'm not. And
Wow.
so I've had to say, I've been learning more about boundaries and learning more
Yeah.
about for work, for life, for business, and learning more about saying no and being comfortable with that. And from that has so much more emerged around who I truly am and how it does not have to be connected anymore to just what I do. Because I was certainly
Wow.
getting into this
Yeah.
whole piece of my very worth and identity being tied to actions, being tied to what was done and potentially, approval from other people.
Oh,
So
wow.
being freed from that has been huge because it gets back to being enough at the end of the day. But
Yeah.
it's definitely shown up in a surprising way for me.
I, I love that. I love what you said, Desiree. I find that at least the first quarter of every year, and maybe the first half of every year, is coming up against those contradictions that are in your life to your word. Like the opposite, like you first choose a word, it's like the opposite things start coming up. Like, okay, that's not freedom. That's not a part of my identity. That's not trust. And so it can be a little bit
Yeah.
overwhelming, but the awareness is so powerful because it allows you to make the shifts and get the stuff out of the way and let
Absolutely.
go, as you said, of things that are keeping you from what you really want in your life. And so it's just a part of the process. It's not all rosy and pretty, but it's powerful.
Sure. And
Yeah.
setting new patterns, because one part was dealing with the belief system. But
Mhm.
what was interesting is just like anything else, like if you have a poor posture and you're always sitting a certain way, your body literally starts to compensate for that. And so although you
Mm.
learn the new posture, at first it hurts because it's used to this other way, and so you've got to learn the new patterns and everything has to adjust around it. So I'm in that adjustment shifting phase,
Mhm.
which can be as painful as the awareness itself. Quite frankly,
Yes.
like
Yeah.
this hurt too. But it is interesting.
Yes, yes.
Mm.
Thank you for being so transparent. I mean, I think yes, we have all of our stuff that we're working on, so it's interesting navigating. Okay, what do I share? What do I say? But I think I just glean a lot from what y'all are saying,
Yeah.
um, so that's encouraging me to do the same. Um, y'all ready for the prompt number 2?
Yes. Yes.
Sure.
um, what is one big action that you've taken to invite more of your word into your life this year?
Hmm.
I can go.
Okay.
Okay. I have to say it is starting this podcast.
Oh.
Because as you know, y'all know, we've talked about it for a couple years maybe.
Yeah.
And I think there was a lot of fear around, well, that means I have to be myself. Who is myself? You know, because
Who's that?
I am always myself, but I feel like I show up in different ways depending upon who I'm around. I would
Mm.
consider my spirit animal being a chameleon, in fact, which is both a gift, but also there's a struggle associated with that because, when the gift is you can go in any environment and blend in. You can go in any environment and thrive, survive, and sometimes thrive. But the other side of that is, okay, when those worlds start to collide, it's like, okay, who am I today? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what part of myself which interest am I talking about? Which, that type of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I've never purposely tried to, you know, um, cover up or pretend to be someone else. It's just I have allowed certain parts of myself to be seen and certain opinions of mine to be seen in settings where I knew it was safe to share that piece of myself. Okay. And
Yeah.
so when you talk about doing a podcast where lots of different people are going to be consuming it, I hope and pray, um, it's like, okay, I have to be more authentic and show up fully and not be afraid of who I might offend or who might not want to be my friend anymore, that type of thing. And so it was a really scary thing, and it is definitely one of the reasons why I put it off. But freedom is the opposite of all that I was just talking about. And so, like, sort of even an identity thing, Desiree. Okay, well, we're getting to the root of how I show up here. I know how I have shown up with you guys in our friendship is 100% me, and you all see a lot more aspects of me than I show to the masses. And so, doing this with you all um, is kind of, I think I use the illustration of like a midwife to that. Like you
Mm.
all give me the courage to show up all the great pieces and parts. it's safe to show them all, you know? And so this was big for me in terms of inviting more freedom, and the freedom of expression, and the freedom to be me unapologetically. So thank you.
You're
You're
welcome.
welcome. Thank you.
Who wants to go next?
That was really good. I so like how you talked about, the fear factor and how
Yeah.
fear is really, to me, what I heard you say is fear is the opposite of freedom. Most people think
Hmm.
freedom, the opposite of freedom is being bound.
Bonded.
But
Yeah.
yeah, but fear, because the absence of fear is total freedom to do whatever,
Hmm.
because that to me was really profound.
Wow.
Because fear represents bondage in whatever way. You know
Mm,
what I'm saying?
yes.
It's really cool. Um, what's the question again? What's the
What's
prompt?
one big
Oh, okay.
decision you've made, or that you're saying it's a symbol to, like, okay, I'm really doing this word. I'm really doing
Yeah,
identity. What's one big action you taking that was big for you? Might not be big to somebody else,
for sure.
Somebody else has 6 podcasts. We got one. You know what I'm saying? So that was big to me. But what's big to you?
I want to go. I mean, especially for anyone who's listening who are business owners, aspiring business owners, looking to own something, even if it's the side hustle, where it's something outside of, it's what you've created. For me, the one thing was one thing that happened several times. I walked away from a contract earlier in the year. It was easy to do because my thought was, this doesn't work for me. I was approached. The great thing is I didn't pursue it. The group came to me. I saw right away it wasn't the right fit. That was easy to walk away from. The second contract showed up, and this was ideal. It was a group I'd worked with a little bit. I'd actually kind of in the past years kept them on my radar. They were like a dream organization. It had national reach. It was exactly in the lane that I love and had really perfected. And it went incredibly south. I mean, beyond
Mm,
south. It felt like my insides were being ripped out. It was painful, not just from the obvious of, oh, money, but from the bigger piece, which is where I started to see my identity lying in the work that I do. I took it absolutely personally with this
Mm.
particular negotiation not going in the direction I wanted it to go. And although they did not turn me down for the project, I made the decision to walk away because I really had to draw this line in the sand around, wow, this is really crossing the line relative to who I am, relative to my worth. And I had to, honest to goodness, I had to talk to maybe 5 to maybe 7 people just to kind of get this. Was I right? Was I wrong? Was I in my emotions? Was I feeling myself? Was I, I'm like, that's a lot of money. In my heart, I feel like I did the right thing, but admittedly, like 3 days later, I'm crying and like, dear God, what have I done? Damn you, identity. Tumultuous. I mean, for weeks,
Mm.
and I was out of sorts. So when I got to project contract number 3, this was an organization I had done work with for 5 years. We had a great working relationship. They were changing the scope of the work, but I was definitely open to adjusting. And in this case, it was going to be some stretching. But halfway in to the investigation phase, I realized, wow, I don't think this is best, but I have another option. I really want to give them another option. And in my mind, they were going to be open to it and we were going to be merry and sing kumbaya. Well, it went left, all the way left. And
mm,
when I tell you, after the first one, it was like, okay, after the second one, I had grief, but I got over it. By the third one, I was just leveled, and had no idea that my worth and my identity was as connected as it was to the work I could do, the sales I could make, and the money I could make. And so it was the most humbling, painful terrifying, questioning, doubting, fearful. I'm sure there's more. I mean, I felt every range of emotion. And so, but the interesting thing is, I consciously walked away each of those, right? So these were never instances where I was, let go. So I say it's the decision I made because in every case I made the decision, but there was so much involved in it. And these were shifts that were made in spite of. And so that's my message. At times, be it the word of the year or even just in business and life, you're making decisions that do not align with logic necessarily or reasoning, but there's that
Mm,
gut knower in your knowing that's like, wow, this is supposed to be different. And
yeah.
so I certainly want to give people permission to do that, recognizing that, it's a simple decision, but it may not be an easy one. And it doesn't mean that you don't feel the repercussions in some respect. What I am holding on to in this moment, because the last one is still somewhat fresh, but I'm getting out of it. What I am holding on to is this word of the year and what it has meant for me and how it's being redefined as I turn this corner. But that is the real fresh off the dome. Fresh. I'll keep you posted on how this turns out.
All will be well. All will be well.
It is.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. I'm excited that y'all are going this deep.
Yeah, we're going deep.
Hey, Amy.
So as you were both talking, I was just trying to deliberate on just how the word has showed up in a big way. And so I'm about to be a little more transparent than I probably want to be, but I really feel I'm being led to do it. So I'm gonna do it. Here we go.
Come on, we got you. We got you. Say the thing. We got you.
So so trust was my word of the year, and I can think of two situations and two aspects of my life that the word has shown up. So the first way has been in my relationship, in my marriage. I tend to be a very deliberate person, a person that's kind of in my head. I'm one who thinks before I speak, and sometimes too much. Sometimes things just need to be said without thinking about all the ins and outs of how it's going to turn out. So that's one of the reasons I chose this word, trust, that some things just need to be said or done, and you have to trust that if you had good intentions, if you have good intentions, and what you're saying or what you're doing is out of love, that it will turn out how it's supposed to, and that you trust that you have the fortitude and the strength to withstand the consequences. So, in this year, I don't know if it's just a consequence of just being a little older and just being having the need to be fully authentic and fully present in my life. I've chosen just to be very open and honest with my husband. So I've had to have some really deep conversations with him and be a little bit more um just be a little bit more transparent than I have normally been. In the past, I may have not said something, and in the me trying not to hurt feelings, or trying not to bruise an ego, or trying not to step on toes. Just in the means of keeping the peace. And this year, no more. Sometimes you have to break an egg to make an omelet, and so I've had several omelets this year, and going into it, whenever you do something that's outside of your comfort zone, it's always scary. It always feels off-putting. There's fear involved. There's anxiety involved. But after doing it, you always feel a lot more free. Not to steal your word, Erica, but you feel free and you feel like a burden has been lifted. And that's one thing that I have it's been a welcome lesson this year. Just to don't be afraid to speak your mind in any situation. and trust that if you're speaking your mind and if you are sharing things that need to be shared, that things will work out how they're supposed to work out. And you can't control how the message will land, but if the message needed to be delivered, it just has to be delivered. So that was the first big lesson. The second big lesson was in this season of my life. This has been one of the most professionally, I've been on a job. I worked at my previous job for 16 years. So this is the first time, I'm working as a consultant now. And there is a lot of freedom in working as a consultant, but there's also a lot of uncertainty. My life is basically dictated in 3 to 6 month periods. And so that has been something that I've had to adjust to and trust that all will be well. And it's been freeing. It's been something that I've had to get used to, but I think it's a lesson, and it's a season that I had to go that I think I had to go through. When you're a person that likes to have stability and likes to have things laid out, and you don't like surprises, sometimes you have to shake things up, and you have to flex those trust muscles in order to just to have stronger faith. I mean, part of trusting is getting outside of yourself and stop relying on what you can see and what's tangible. And so that's been the biggest gift this year for me. Just trusting in my own discernment and my own thoughts, and also just trusting God that in every situation, whether it's professionally, personally, God's there, and you just have to let Him have it, and just that's been something that it's a simple concept, but it's not something easy to do. It's not easy to exercise that trust sometimes. So that's my answer.
Oh my God. Sounds like Jurassic Park. Okay. Next is what small action have you taken that represents your word? Just, a small one, because we talked about big things you decided to do. So now, something small that you've done recently that represents your word.
Something small.
So I'm supposed to go first. I think, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how. I did change a service provider yesterday. One that I had been seeing for quite some time. So was a doctor. But I had a few experiences with a new doctor, and it felt so different, and it felt so much more like freedom that I went ahead and got my medical records transferred, and I'm excited about the new chapter, the new beginning.
Nice.
If you're going somewhere and you are paying somebody money, or even if you have a relationship and you are increasingly feeling signs of discomfort every time you interact, then you have the freedom to make a change and not prioritize someone else's feelings, needs, wants above yours. You have the freedom to do that, and it is self-preserving, self-care to do that. And so it really is kind of big. It was just something that happened yesterday that was as easy as filling out some paperwork. So that's why I called it small, but maybe there is no small thing when it comes to
That's
freedom.
good. Yeah, you're thinking
You
that.
know, that's cute.
Yeah.
So that was one thing. Who wants to go next? Something pop in your mind that
Um, I'll go because I agree. It's hard. How do you figure out what's small versus big? But for me, part of this identity piece is also embracing who I really am versus how I've spent most of my life, which is trying to change, improve, better, yada yada yada. And so I'm tending to be attracted to groups that celebrate who and what I am versus trying to improve or change who I am. So I joined a group, it's a coaching group that is a very unique type. It is specific for people that think, process, and emote in the exact way that I do, which is a very interesting slice of a pie. I mean, and it's not so we all come together to commiserate, but it is to celebrate. This is how you process, think, communicate, and therefore here is how you can work and be okay with it, and here's how we can do that. It's more so, here's not just more permission, but here are other tools of how to embrace exactly who you are versus trying to be how the masses are. And I say it's small or large, but I was not joining any more groups, coaches, yada yada. I'm like, I'm full. But it's because my attempts up to this point have been to change something, fix something that was broken. And this is not about that. It is getting even further to the core. And so it's a very small shift, but I do think it's a big one.
yeah, I think so many of the big shifts they happen so smoothly and so like under the radar that you could almost miss it. It's like,
Exactly.
whoa, that was a shift. Did you see that? Did you feel that? And you have to like check in with yourself or share with a friend, with a sister friend,
I
and
agree.
they'll call it out.
I agree. And I almost missed it. So I'm glad you said that. Because I mean, to me, I was like, I'm joining another group. Big whoop. I spends a lot on learning, but this is not learning. This is appreciating. I'm
Celebrate.
smarter. I'm smarter.
Can you say that again? What was that, Desiree?
I said, I'm smarter. I'm smarter. Yay. I'm smarter.
Amy, yay. What small thing have you done or action have you taken that represents your word recently?
Um, I mean, we've touched on this before. I use my word as a lens. I think for me, it's been just letting go of control. And one example of that is this week. On Friday, my family and I are going on a little mini trip. Normally, I would plan it down to the T. Where are we gonna stay? What are we gonna eat? What activities we're gonna do? Just every little thing, and just kind of take a lot of the joy out of it. But other than booking a hotel, I haven't made a lot of other plans. We're just gonna take it as it goes, see where the day takes us, and I'm gonna trust in that. And it may sound like a very small thing, but for me that's a big thing. So that's one way. And just on a daily basis, sometimes I try to make myself exercise trust in a lot of different ways, whether that's trusting my children to make a meal and see how that turns out. Um, trusting my husband to do something that I would normally do and letting him do it his way and not try to get it in the way and try to do it my way. So to me, trust and control go kind of hand in hand. The more I let go of control, the more I'm trusting, and the more the freer I am, the less stressed I am. And so it's been a conscious decision to do more of that. Let go of stop controlling things, just getting out of the way and just kind of letting things go.
That's awesome, Amy. So similar thing I thought of. Oh, I hear feedback. Anyway, the opposite of control or the opposite of trust is really control, not
Mm.
distrust. So that's just,
Yeah,
I like this. Yeah.
I think so too, Des. I think that typically you would think distrust is the opposite, but no, for me, it's control. Not trying to mold everything in, or not that I bend things to my will, but I think it's just I don't know where I picked it up along the way, but somewhere along the way, I picked up this idea that I have to be in control. I always have to be the most prepared, or I always have to be not the smartest person in the room, but I can't show my weakness by not being in control.
Hmm.
And you know, that's a very is limiting for one, it's exhausting for another thing, and you never let your true self show through when you're always worried about how you appear to others, and how how not to let your weakness show. As I'm getting older, I just realized that sometimes my weakness is my strength, and the two are not mutually exclusive. You don't have, just because you may have a weakness, or I don't even think of it as a weakness, but if you have something that you need to improve upon, or just something, a struggle with something, that doesn't make you weak. That makes you stronger. If you can admit it and share it with someone that may grow from that same struggle. And I think, this notion of always trying to be in control, that's what gives a lot of us a lot of anxiety on a daily basis. Um, you can't control everything, big or small. You just have to let things go.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Desiree, you found or pointed out the opposite word where Amy said that control was the opposite of trust. For me, you pointed out that fear was the opposite of freedom. I wonder if you, for yourself, have identified what the opposite of identity is. One of the things I've heard you talk about is accepting and celebrating versus improving, tweaking.
Mm.
Um, but I wonder if you've come up with what's the opposite of identity for you.
So strangely, and I want to marinate on this because it's so funny, because I literally was thinking the same thing after I said that for Amy. And I'm like, well, what is the opposite of identity? What is it? Strangely, and I'm so serious, I was writing about this the other day. I believe that purpose is the opposite, but I want to explain why. Because opposite doesn't mean bad, and that's the thing I'm also embracing. Sometimes when something is polar opposite, it doesn't mean be this, not that. It just means
Yeah.
it is the opposite of it. And
Mm,
so purpose, which I had learned and grown up in, there was a whole purpose movement, was just all about doing and in my mind, pushing. Whereas identity is all about being. And so do we need both? Absolutely. But they can be opposites, meaning, they can potentially be disaligned, not aligned, and yet they just give attention to very different things, and in our culture, the doing is so important. And it is now what people are assigning value and worth to. We've
mm,
lost sight of the being, which is honestly what God starts with. He
yes.
doesn't expect us to do something to get his love or approval.
Oh
We have
my
to start
goodness.
from that point. And yet it is the
Yes.
very thing that I've struggled with.
Mm,
I've struggled with accepting
Ignorant.
it. I'm like, Lord,
Your
what you want
word
me to do for you?
is
Like
inclusion.
I can
Yeah. Yeah.
pay his love out. And the inability to accept that being is enough, to me, it's because of the culture of doing and pushing. So I think that's what it is. But let me marinate. Let me marinate. Something up in there.
I'll go
Something in
ahead and already sign off on that one,
there.
Esther.
Okay.
yeah,
That
I
was
concur.
absolutely that being
Amen and
versus
amen.
doing is a whole podcast, girl. Um, absolutely. Absolutely. How are we doing on time? Because I can ask one more question or we can wrap it up. You tell me.
I
What do
feel
y'all
like
think?
this is a good time of completion, only because I know
Mhm.
there are some other things we have, but
Okay.
I'm here. I'm open.
All
So
right, well,
yeah,
let's just close out. Let's just close out with the last prompt and just go around and that'll be our closeout. How about that? Okay.
sounds
So
great.
it's easy. I just came to me is what is one thing you're looking forward to that
Oh,
will you already know it's going to be like a celebration or a culmination of your work. Like it doesn't have to be a big thing at the end of the year. I mean, it's, oh, something's coming up and I'm looking forward to it because this is all about my work. Um,
ooh,
for
Hmm.
me, the thing that came to mind is I'm having a get together this weekend, and I just, I guess I may come across as being domestic and things, but I don't necessarily love to entertain, and I don't do it that often. It just makes me nervous. It's that whole chameleon thing, like, uh-oh, this person gonna meet this person. So
the
silly.
circles are going to connect and
Girl,
overlap.
God, oh my God. Okay. But just uh there's so many things wrapped up in it. But I'm excited about the people that are getting together. I spoke last time about just wanting the people that I love and care about to connect and develop a relationship because that just makes me feel like my community, my village is expanding, strong, growing. And so I think that you feel like when that's established and that's strong, you feel, I don't know, you do feel a sense of freedom to go out and do things because you know there are some people that have your back.
Hmm.
So I just feel like I'm excited about the beginning of what it is. So it's just, yeah, something I'm looking forward to. Freedom to have friendships flourish. So,
Nice.
yeah.
Nice.
All right, close out. Come on, who's
Oh
next?
yeah, close out. Yes. Um, shucks, I just had it. The one thing we're looking forward to. I'm looking forward to, I don't want to say the word finding my voice, but really using my voice again. For me, I knew I didn't want to show up again if it was anything short of just who I am. You know what I'm saying? So it's like no more pretending, no more, mask wearing, like the poem We Wear the Mask. I don't want to wear the mask no more.
Mhm.
And so I look forward to seeing more of my work and life integrate with my identity
Mhm.
versus what I think it should be. Just like Amy was alluding to, that we feel like, we have to be without weaknesses and strong and in
Mhm.
control and all these sorts of things. So I'm excited to really show up fully in all of the aspects of my life, not have, oh, I can do it here, not here. So I'm looking forward to that. I think it's showing up a little bit, but I really do look forward to even more integration.
Um, for me, so this podcast, there's three things that I have going on in this year. The podcast was one. Starting the podcast was something that I think we each had a little bit of anticipation for. It's out of all of our comfort zones, and we weren't really sure what it would be like, what it would feel like, but we were excited about it. And so, there's been a certain level of trust that I've trust in my own ability to communicate, trust in my trust that I had something to share with potentially the masses, and just trusting in all that. Not trying to figure out how or when or how how it's going to turn how to do it, but just doing it. And that's been a very liberating thing this year. I'm going back to school this year. I've started taking classes and trusting that that I still have an academic bone in my body. Trust, and I do, and that's been that's been a welcome surprise, and it's been something that's given me some confidence, and just trusting how I'd be able to balance all that, working, school, all all of my separate little side projects, but trusting and just doing it, getting out of the way and just doing it, and trusting it all to work out how it's supposed to. It's been eye-opening. It's worked out. It's all worked out great. And it's 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 been a good year. I forgot the question as I was talking. What was the close?
I'm gonna start making some cue cards for Amy.
I know, especially when I'm the third one. I'm like, oh, what was I talking about? What was the question,
It's
Erica?
simple.
I'm so sorry.
It simply
Yeah.
was, what are you looking forward to
Oh, okay.
that it's gonna mean more of your work coming into your life?
Okay. So I'm looking forward to continuing, continuing doing things that are outside of my comfort zone, like this podcast, continuing with finishing my degree, and I'll be finished in December, and just trusting that God will continue to give me strength to do it. My family will continue to support me. My friends will continue to support me, and just continuing to do things and stepping out on faith, and just being unique, being my true authentic self. We've all said that in some form or the other. We've said that throughout the podcast, that we just want to we want to just be authentically ourselves, and it just leads me to wonder, why did we ever feel like we could not be? Because from where I stand, I think we're all pretty great, and we're shortchanging the world if we don't share who we really are authentically. And I think it's enough of trying to be chameleons and trying to fit in, and try to change ourselves to be something that we feel the world needs. We just need to be ourselves, and I'm excited to do more of that.
Hey. I love that.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Common goal.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I would add real quick, one thing I didn't say is that I'm looking forward to that authentic self showing up in my artwork and what that looks like, and seeing how it might resonate. But first, just letting the true me come through it. So I'm excited about that. So I think that was episode 2.
Yeah.
We're enough, y'all. We are enough. Just how we are, we're enough. We're enough.
Yeah,
So
I love
Awesome.
it. All right.
Cool.
all right. Well, ladies, looking forward to the next one, number 3. And have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.
All right.